This is another piece I probably will need to show photos because it's heavy, but let me see if I can show you at least one while it's in my hands. This is a cinnabar lacquer. Wow, heavy. It's those drawers inside that make it quite heavy. This is a cinnabar lacquer steel chest. Okay, can you see that? A very cool piece as well. And wow, that is heavy. I'm always hesitant before I give a definitive date until I've really looked closely at the piece, but it should be at least 19th century or earlier. This piece probably comes from Beijing. The workmanship, the style is very recognizable as Beijing style lacquer. Now, let's see, I'll show you a few different parts of it though. When you open it up, it is drawers inside, and let me show you what it looks like in the inside. Look at that. And the swastika pattern on the front is just wild, absolutely wild. This is a crazy, crazy detail. Now, this is, again, you need to be buying from reputable sources if you're dealing with lacquer, because you need to do a lot of homework to really get up to speed on lacquer. And this piece was quite interesting because the front panel, voila, and the drawers and the rest of the piece use two different techniques. Now, what does that mean? If you look at this drawer, and okay, video, photos can be very distorting of color. When you see this piece in person, is very obviously cinnabar lacquer. Cinnabar lacquer, like actual real cinnabar lacquer, is kind of easy to tell. It has a certain kind of orange, almost subtle glow to it that synthetic lacquers don't really have, and so you recognize it quite quickly. But so the body of this piece and the drawers and the rest of it have that. The front, however, is a bit darker, and it took me a while, but actually I think the front has been relacquered at some point in history, and that's why you don't see the orange that you do. In fact, if you look here on this section, maybe you can see a little bit of the color difference. The workmanship on the front and the carving is extremely fine as well. But these are not things that come across very clearly on photos. It has been well taken care of. It's been repaired a few times as well. But it's one of those pieces that I'm always like, do I keep it? Do I sell it? Do I keep it? Do I sell it? But yeah, what a cool piece. Thankfully, this piece is actually doing pretty well. Not so fragile. This is an incense stand or a small tea table. You could call it a xiaokangji, xiaoxiangji. Yeah, there's a couple of uses for these stands. Now, you can see, of course, this again is mother of pearl. And you see the inlay work is quite fine. Now, what makes this piece really, really interesting is the top. Let me show you the top here. Now, if you see the top here, this inlay work is, we'll say, unusual in that this technique is a little bit easier to date than some of the other inlay work, in that what they do, let's see if I can show you the columns here. What they do is they take very thin pieces of mother of pearl, but large pieces, and rather than creating all the detail from very small pieces, which they do in some portions, in some places on this piece, but there's a lot of pieces where the way they create the details, they use a large piece of mother of pearl and then they incise, they engrave the top of it very finely to create that detail. Now, that's an early technique. Usually you see that sort of technique on Yuan pieces and very early Ming pieces. And so when I saw this piece, I grabbed it right away because I recognized this has got to be either Yuan or very early Ming. Now, it's lost some mother of pearl here and there. You see the clouds are missing. You see the brickwork in the home, in the interior is actually lost, but most of it is there. And the overall scene as well matches quite nicely with a lot of published early Yuan pieces. The work on the side is also very, very beautiful. And you see, this is almost reminiscent of basketwork weaving, in fact. And you see the animals, the birds on the apron, same thing, very, very reminiscent of earlier pieces. Not that you don't ever see that motif again, but this changes as you go along. A lot of times you'll see scholars walking along in a grove or something on some later pieces, but this feels very early to me. Now, the other thing that's quite interesting about it is there's a disconnect in the color of the lacquer between the outer band and the top surface. And I haven't quite decided yet because I need to study it quite closely under a loupe. It may be that this piece has been repaired. It may be that this is a newer piece built around an older piece. There's so many possibilities. You'll see this a lot with inlay work. I've handled quite a few pieces that actually were more than one date. I had a piece that went out recently that was Ming, but then the top of it was relacquered and redone in the Ryukyu Islands probably several hundred years later. So the whole piece was old, but it was two different periods combined into one. So that could be what's going on here. But I bought it on a whim, and it's just again, I'm just overflowing these days. Just having these pieces in front of you is just like, wow, it's so amazing to be able to touch and feel them. And if you can, I highly recommend that you do. This is what's called a peach box. And the reason they're called that is, as you can see, the shape like a peach. And this is, I want to say this is Qianlong or Baozi. And again, I'll probably take a closer look at this piece again before I give a final date, but should be around that period. Very finely carved. You can see there's a little bit of separation on the underside, and just, you know, I buy a lot of lacquer and I try to handle a lot of lacquer. One of the things that I noticed is, you know, you need to handle these things. If you're not handling them, and they need to be the real things as well, that's the critical thing. They need to be real. If you're not handling real pieces, you're not going to be able to develop a sense as to what is what and whether or not it is real. And this is one of my pet peeves. I have some videos coming out on it. If it's not out by the time you're watching this video, I apologize, check back, it will be. And if it is out, I will have put it in the link below. But try to handle real pieces. It really drives me nuts that people do this, but you guys are buying stuff on eBay and from these cheap sources, and what you're buying is oftentimes 20th century stuff, masquerading as 19th or 18th century. I see tons of fakes, I see tons of new pieces, and unfortunately you're kind of wasting your money and you're not getting the opportunity to touch and feel the real thing. And lacquer is tricky. You see, I have a lot of lacquer. I tend to buy a lot of lacquer. I've been in the lacquer world a lot, coming from furniture, so I love lacquer. But yeah, you need to be able to touch and feel the real thing. You know, this box has there's a certain hard quality to the lacquer. And the funny thing is, this doesn't always show up on a photo. If you haven't, hear that? Now, I know what that's like. I hear it right now. And I've seen plastic pieces and resin pieces, and the sound is slightly different. But if you're only handling resin pieces and plastic pieces, you're not going to know that, okay? The other thing is, a lot of these things, they don't show so easily when you look at it this way, but when you look at it under a loupe, the details come up very clearly. And again, if you're just buying this late junk, or you're buying fakes, and worse, you're thinking they're real pieces, you're not getting the education you need. So try to save your money, try to buy pieces that are real, try to buy them from somewhat reputable dealers. Remember, if you're spending a few $100 here and there on eBay, you can be saving that money. That adds up very quickly, and you could have yourself a very nice piece in your hands. So yeah, maybe you can have this piece.